What's your name, Missy?
Dora?
My mother's name was Dora.
Oh, really?
Hello, get ready to experience the Wild West like never before. Today, we're uncovering the hidden stories of the frontier, the tales the history books left out. I invite you to join me as I explore 10 forgotten trans facts in the history of the Wild West. Y'all ain't heard these stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss a minute.
Did you make coffee?
This time I did.
Number 10. Stagecoach drivers. In the midst of the gold rush, the Wild West echoed with the thundering hooves of stagecoaches, transporting precious cargo from remote mining outposts in the Sierra to the bustling banks of San Francisco. These journeys were not only perilous due to the rough terrain, but also because of the relentless threats of bandits waiting to pounce and plunder. Stagecoach drivers, the unsung heroes of this treacherous trade, were a breed of men celebrated for their expert navigation and unyielding fearlessness. The stakes were high, the terrain unforgiving, and thieves lurked in the shadows, making it essential for these drivers to be adept with a gun to safeguard both their cargo and passengers. Their bravery earned them notoriety, and the best among them were hailed by name across the expanse of California. Amidst this world of hyper-masculinity and rugged toughness emerged an unexpected figure, Charlie Parkhurst, one of the finest stagecoach drivers in the entire state. Charlie defied the norms of the time, standing out not only for skill, but for being gender non-conforming. Described as a man of slight build, Charlie was known for chewing tobacco, sipping whiskey, and having a penchant for colorful language. Riding with beaded gloves and wielding a whip on his horses, Charlie exuded toughness that transcended societal expectations. The legend of One-Eyed Charlie added to the mistake. Half blinded by a horse's kick, an incident likely triggered by a snake, Charlie's resilience in the face of adversity became legendary. Tales of daring bridge crossings during storms only fueled the reputation of this enigmatic figure. Little did Charlie's peers know, hidden beneath the exterior of a grizzled stagecoach driver was a secret that would challenge the conventional narrative of the Wild West. Charlie Parkhurst, admired for asserting a gendered self in a profession that demanded conformity, held a secret, a history that defied the expectations of assigned gender at birth. Because they is a wonderful non-binary pronoun that can be used today to mark people who are sort of refusing or renouncing the gender binary, explains Don Romsberg, a historian and chair of women's and gender studies at Sonoma State University. For Charlie, navigating a world fixated on binaries, they emerges as a fitting pronoun, capturing the undecidability of a life lived authentically. In Romsberg's words, if you're going to pick one wrong gender pronoun for Charlie, it would be she. Because for as much of Charlie's life that Charlie was an active agent in asserting a gendered self, he was a he. The motivation behind Charlie Parkhurst's decision to live as a man in the mid-19th century California are shrouded in mystery, a tale woven with complexities and nuances. Historian Don Romsberg reflects on the limited economic opportunities for women during that era, emphasizing that options were confined to roles like seamstresses, laundresses, teachers, or even sex workers. In a society where romantic ties to someone of the same sex could lead to marginalization, the decision to live as a man might have stemmed from various factors beyond a straightforward expression of gender identity. Romsberg acknowledges the ambiguity surrounding Parkhurst's choices, stating, "There's all sorts of reasons beyond perhaps a true expression of one's gendered self that someone like Parkhurst might choose to live as a man for many years." Yet, despite that uncertainty, Parkhurst's life became an indelible part of trans history, a narrative that defies the rigid norms of the time. Charlie Parkhurst's legacy unfolded on the dusty roads crisscrossing California. From the gold-rich Mariposa to the bustling Stockton, the urban sprawl of Oakland to the vibrant San Jose, and the historical San Juan to the picturesque Santa Cruz. Parkhurst's reputation as a skilled stagecoach driver, sought after by wealthy families traversing the rugged terrain, carried not just passengers, but a cargo of gold for Wells Fargo. The Wild West was a realm of uncertainties, where danger lurked in the form of highway robbers and faces concealed by masks made of long underwear. In one harrowing encounter, Parkhurst faced the muzzle of a gun, passengers trembling as bandits demanded the money box. In a moment where the odds seemed insurmountable, Parkhurst, with no access to a gun, yielded the treasure, but not without a warning. The bandits were forewarned that a repeat occurrence would yield unpleasant consequences. Undeterred by the threat, Parkhurst became a master of preparation. The next encounter, this time with the infamous desperado Sugarfoot, unfolded with a different script. When faced with danger, Parkhurst's resolve was unyielding, a testament to courage that transcended gender norms. The result was a life saved and a notorious outlaw laid to rest. The reputation of Charlie Parkhurst burgeoned, earning a place as one of the safest whips in California, ultimately recognized as the boss driver of the road. Number 9. Cross-dressing outlaws. In the melodious words of the Kinks, girls will be boys and boys will be girls, a sentiment that echoed through the ages and even reverberated in the rugged landscapes of the Wild West. The seemingly untamed frontier was, in fact, a stage where men and women frequently transcended traditional gender norms, donning each other's clothing in a dance of defiance against societal expectations. The Wild West was a tapestry of gender-swapping tales, where practicality and personal expression mingled on the dusty trails. Women, seeking convenience in performing chores around the homestead, embraced a wardrobe reminiscent of the menfolk. On the flip side of this sartorial spectrum emerged figures like James Powelson, an alleged man of the 1880s who sauntered through the demi-monde of Sacramento, California, adorned in lavender-colored pantaloons and other fancy man garb. Historian Michael Lyons, cited by Hornet, unveils a captivating chapter in California's history during the 1890s gold rush. The state's population was predominantly male, leading to an unconventional sharing of responsibilities. Single men not only shared homes and chores, but at times even shared beds, marking the acceptance of what came to be known as bachelor marriages. In the broader context, cross-dressing was not a new concept, but it faced staunch opposition. Columbus, Ohio took the lead in 1848 by outlawing cross-dressing, a trend that rippled through more than 40 U.S. cities, according to PBS. However, in the remote expanses of the West, where societal norms were as rugged as the landscape, men and women defied conventions, freely exchanging clothing and challenging established gender roles for a myriad of reasons. As we explore the untold stories of the Wild West gender nonconformists, we'll encounter characters who dared blur the lines, weaving a narrative of resilience and rebellion against the restrictive norms of their time. Stay with us as we uncover the fascinating tales of those who embraced a world where girls will be boys and boys will be girls. Number 8. Brothel workers. There was a chapter in the tumultuous tapestry of the Wild West that was often overlooked. The story of transgender individuals who found both economic opportunity and a semblance of acceptance in the confines of brothels in a time when pioneers sought fortune and communities sprouted on the edge of civilization. As the frontier boomed, young men flocked westward in pursuit of opportunities in logging, surveying, mining, and farming. However, a stark gender imbalance emerged, with up to 20% more men than women in many fringe areas of the West. This shortage of women paved the way for the flourishing of brothels, transforming pioneer mining camps and boomtowns into homes for at least a handful of prostitutes, if not full-fledged red light districts. A district judge's account of Miles, Montana, in 1881, paints a vivid picture of the debauchery that often accompanied these settlements. He described it as a lively yet utterly demoralized and lawless town, where safety on the streets at night was a luxury, and saloons outnumbered inhabitants. Prostitution, though largely illegal, thrived, evident in directories like the 1895 Traveler's Guide of Colorado, a 66-page manual aiding interested clients in selecting the right brothel for their inclinations. Amidst this frontier chaos, transgender individuals, especially those assigned male at birth who identified as women, found a niche within the confines of brothels. With this line of work stigmatized, it offered a dual promise: social acceptance and economic independence. The rise of prostitution contributed substantially to town economies, generating revenue through business licenses, fees, and fines. Red light districts evolved into the social epicenters of communities, despite the prevalent illegality of the trade. Prostitution was a perilous occupation, with risks ranging from childbirth to venereal diseases. Yet, within this peril, some women transcended societal norms to become wealthy, famous, and respected citizens in their own right by assuming the role of madams in their brothels. These women navigated a landscape where rigid gender roles dictated societal norms, and any deviation faced discrimination and prejudice. For transgender individuals, the brothel offered a unique space where they could express their gender identity and find a measure of acceptance within a community that, to some extent, tolerated diverse expressions of gender. However, this acceptance was conditional, and those in these occupations faced social stigma and legal challenges. Quoting historian and chair of women's and gender studies at Sonoma State University, Don Romsberg, women were given very few economic opportunities in the mid-19th century California. They could be seamstresses or laundresses or teachers or sex workers, essentially. This limitation forced some individuals, driven by economic necessity, to embrace the perilous world of the frontier brothel. These historic experiences unveil the complexity of gender identity and expression in different cultural and historical contexts. They illuminate the ways marginalized individuals navigated societal expectations to find spaces where they could live more authentically, even within the constraints of a challenging and often prejudiced environment. Number 7. Motivated by money. In the seemingly untaped landscape of the Old West, where tales of cowboys, outlaws, and pioneers dominate the historical narrative, there exists a concealed chapter. Stories of individuals who defied traditional gender norms, living out their lives in pursuit of happiness and financial independence. According to Peter Boag, a historian at Washington State University and author of Redressing America's Frontier Past, the historical record might have overlooked these individuals, but they were undeniably part of the fabric of daily life in the Old West. Boag, while researching the gay history of Portland, stumbled upon a treasure trove of stories featuring people who dared to dress against their assigned gender. This hidden population surprised Boag, a seasoned queer historian of the American West. Transgender individuals, he asserts, have always existed worldwide, prompting the question, how did they manage to escape notice in the annals of the Old West? The historical accounts reveal numerous instances of individuals assigned female at birth who went on to lead happy and successful lives in the West, their transgender identities often remaining a secret until after their deaths. One such story is that of Sammy Williams, a logger and cook in Manhattan, Montana for 18 years. A well-regarded member of the Gallatin County community, Williams' true assigned gender at birth was only discovered by the undertaker upon his death at the age of 80. According to Boag, nobody in the community seriously doubted Williams' presentation as a man. Boag's research uncovered many similar stories, portraying the West as a haven where trans men could navigate life with a degree of anonymity, escaping the scrutiny they might face elsewhere. However, the West was not as kind to trans women. The narrative shifts to an intriguing case, the life and death of Sammy Williams, an 80-year-old lumberjack who, upon death in 1908, left the community bewildered. The undertaker's discovery of Sammy's assigned sex challenged the perception of the man they had known. Boag suggests that Sammy's decision to transition was motivated by financial considerations. As early as 1869, it was noted that female employees tended to earn less than their male counterparts. Sammy, accumulating $4,000 in property and holding a $5,000 life insurance policy, guarded her secret diligently. Even when faced with a dislocated shoulder, she declined chloroform, preserving the enigma surrounding her real name, age, and birthplace. Sammy's friends, unaware of her true identity, contributed funds for her burial in the local cemetery, leaving behind a tombstone that marks not only her final resting place, but also the mystery that shrouded her life. Number 6. Dark backgrounds. In the vast expanses of the Pacific Northwest during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a figure emerged who would become one of the region's most notorious and enigmatic characters, Allen. Against the backdrop of the still wild and untamed West, where individuals sought fortune, evaded the law, or embarked on new beginnings, Allen carved a unique path, blending a history of crime with the challenges of being a trans man. From the 1890s onward, Allen's notoriety grew as he became a frequent guest in the legal system, charged with offenses ranging from theft and vagrancy to bootlegging. However, it wasn't merely the crimes that drew attention. It was Allen's steadfast refusal to conform to societal expectations by eschewing women's clothing, adopting a cowboy's attire, maintaining a trimmed hairstyle, and speaking with a baritone voice. Born female, Allen was part of a cohort of trans men who sought refuge on the frontier. In 1912, Allen faced a particularly sensational arrest in Portland on charges of white slavery. Traveling across state lines with Isabel Maxwell posing as his wife, Allen was, in fact, on the run with his partner. Portland police, perhaps unable to comprehend gender nonconformity, sentenced Allen to 90 days in jail for the ambiguous charge of vagrancy. For individuals assigned female at birth, the frontier offered a unique opportunity for reinvention. Allen, in a 1908 interview with the Seattle Sunday Times, candidly expressed his discomfort with his assigned gender. "I do not like to be a girl, do not feel like a girl, and never did look like a girl," he declared. Faced with societal rejection, Allen embarked on a journey to transform himself into the man he felt he was meant to be. The press of the time seized on Allen's story, framing it within the context of the American frontier zeitgeist. Local publications portrayed him as part of the scum of the West, highlighting his tumultuous career of saloon brawls, bootlegging, bronco busting, and horse stealing. The media marveled at his swagger, foul mouth, and love for strong spirits. Embracing the possibilities that men's attire offered, Allen navigated through various occupations including bartender, barber, and longshoreman. Seattle, experiencing exponential population growth from 3,500 to over 350,000 residents between 1880 and 1930, symbolized opportunity. According to historian Peter Boag, local newspapers provided extensive records of individuals likely to be trans on the frontier. Although lacking the nuanced language and understanding of gender we have today, these publications thrived on sensationalism, scandal, and shock, often depicting encounters between civilized society and gender nonconforming individuals. Number 5. Secret Lives. In the rugged terrain of the Old West, Martha Calamity Jane Canary carved a niche for herself that defied convention. Born in the 1850s and meeting her end in 1903, Calamity Jane's life was a tapestry woven with the threads of contradiction and mystery. Known for her ability to look and act like a man, shoot like a cowboy, and drink like a fish, Calamity Jane's identity was a complex interplay of gender norms and personal authenticity. While historical accounts suggest that she typically wore dresses while engaging in various roles such as cook, waitress, dance hall girl, and sex worker, there were instances where she boldly donned a soldier's uniform during her time with General George Armstrong Custer's contingent in Wyoming. This audacious act led to her expulsion from a party for failing to adhere to the expected feminine attire. Photographs of Calamity Jane capture her in both male and female clothing, reflecting the fluidity of her identity. Despite social norms, she expressed her affection for men openly. Intriguingly, 2 women, Jean Hickok McCormick and Maud Weir, once claimed Calamity Jane as their mother, though these assertions were later debunked. Historical records indicate that Jane did have a child, Jessie, born in 1887. Jane, pregnant at the time, spoke to Illustrated magazine writer M.L. Fox about her deep connection to her daughter, declaring, "She's all I've got to live for. She's my only comfort." Marriage was not foreign to Calamity Jane, adding another layer to her enigmatic life. Some speculation even suggested that she might have been a hermaphrodite, a notion dismissed by medical records, indicating only 11 known cases of hermaphrodites giving birth. Limited options for women in those times, especially those lacking education, led Martha Jane to become a camp follower, a woman who unofficially traveled with troops, contributing through tasks like laundry, cooking, and potentially engaging in prostitution. While some of the legendary tales surrounding Calamity Jane remain unverifiable, their plausibility depends on the credibility of period newspapers. Stories of her aiding smallpox victims and single-handedly saving a stagecoach from Native American attacks linger, each narrative adding another layer to the enigma that was Calamity Jane. Her journey eventually led her to Deadwood, South Dakota, where she became intertwined with the infamous Jack McCall, the man who ended the life of Wild Bill Hickok with a bullet to the back of the head. Contrary to popular belief, Calamity Jane did not capture McCall, and despite rumors, she and Hickok were never intimately involved or secretly married. Their connection, though not romantic, was one of deep friendship, and Jane mourned his tragic demise. Number 4. Mrs. Nash. On October 30th, 1878, the nation mourned the passing of one of the most beloved figures of her time, Mrs. Nash, a woman whose life story unfolded like a captivating mystery, leaving an indelible mark on history. The early chapters of Mrs. Nash's life remain veiled in obscurity. Her birth name, lost to the annals of time, conceals a past that, despite its elusiveness, is not entirely forgotten. Hailing from Mexico, Mrs. Nash carried with her the weight of a personal tragedy: marriage, 2 children, and the heart-wrenching loss of her offspring at a tender age. Intriguingly, during this period, she assumed the identity of a man, navigating the challenging terrain as she drove ox teams over the arduous Santa Fe Trail to New Mexico. The narrative takes a turn as Mrs. Nash arrives in Elizabethtown, Kentucky in 1866, where she seamlessly integrates into the tapestry of the U.S. Army. Embracing the role of a laundress, she soon becomes renowned not only for her mastery of laundry, but also for her prowess as a skilled seamstress. Officers' uniforms, meticulously tailored by her hands, bore witness to her craft. Beyond the laundry room, Mrs. Nash's talents extended to the kitchen, where her pies attained legendary status, sought after by many. Yet, her contributions transcended the realms of laundry and baking. Mrs. Nash emerged as a reliable nurse and midwife, a guardian angel attending to the needs of those on the post. The expertise she brought to childbirth earned her a place in the hearts of many, as few births occurred without the touch of her skilled hands. Making a meager $17 a month as a laundress, a wage that surpassed that of a private in the Army, Mrs. Nash, with her side endeavors, managed to accumulate a substantial nest egg. However, financial success was not unfamiliar to her. Recounting her past, Mrs. Nash revealed that her first husband had callously abandoned her, absconding with all her wealth. This early betrayal served as a catalyst, propelling her toward a life of self-reliance and determination. The turning point came when Mrs. Nash's skills garnered recognition during her cattle work. Her employer, acknowledging her as a woman dressed as a man, offered her a more fitting role as a laundress and seamstress for the United States Cavalry stationed in Kentucky. It wasn't just a job, it was a coveted position, one of the best a frontierswoman could aspire to. This role provided not only a steady income, but also essential provisions, protection, and the autonomy to live life independently, a rarity in the burgeoning West. Mrs. Nash transcended the expectations of her role, swiftly becoming an indispensable member of the community. Beyond her duties, she showcased culinary prowess, captivating palates with her famously delicious tamales, catering fort dances, and baking pies so exceptional that neighboring towns placed orders for delivery. Tales even circulated of her practicing brujeria, casting spells over playing cards to turn the luck of a struggling infantryman, transforming him into a gaming victor. With her cooking side hustle thriving, Mrs. Nash ventured into the world of fashion. Bolts of fine fabric transformed under her skilled hands into stunning dresses with daring décolletage. Formal events became her stage for regular costume changes, and her living quarters reflected her flair for interior design. Her generosity endeared her to both soldiers and civilians, solidifying her place as a beloved figure in the annals of frontier history. Number 3. Legal challenges. It is no coincidence that the stories of transgender individuals appear as silent yet steadfast threads in the tapestry of the Wild West, a place where stories of resilience and hardship are so ingrained in the fabric of history that they challenge the traditional narrative that has often excluded them. Amidst the rugged landscapes and untamed frontiers, transgender individuals faced legal challenges reminiscent of struggles elsewhere in the United States. Court records, though sparse, bear witness to the battles waged by these individuals against discrimination and societal norms. The prevailing narrative of Montana as a harsh, hyper-masculine terrain, dictated by traditional gender roles, often neglects the rich history and diverse cultures of the indigenous peoples who inhabited these lands long before settlers arrived. Even within the settler narrative, the experiences of queer individuals, including those who were transgender, have been systematically erased. In the face of the most recent attacks on trans rights, a reflection on history becomes imperative. Trans and queer individuals have always been integral members of our communities, contributing to the tapestry of the Wild West in ways that challenge conventional narratives. By unearthing these obscured stories, we illuminate the resilience and significance of those whose narratives have been silenced. Joseph Lobdell, a figure from the mid-1800s, stands as one such embodiment of resilience. An explorer and adventurer, Lobdell defied societal expectations by living as a man. His story, however, is one of legal and social tribulations, a testament to the challenges faced by transgender individuals in a time when conformity was enforced rigorously. Number 2. Bachelor marriages. It is only when looking at the vast expanse of the Wild West, where tales of grit and camaraderie are unfolded against rugged landscapes, that a nuanced story emerges, one that challenges what had previously been portrayed as the stereotype of a hyper-masculine frontier, devoid of varied relationships and culture. Chris Packard, in his book Queer Cowboys and Other Erotic Male Friendships in 19th Century Literature, delves into the intricacies of relationships in the early West. While overt examples of queer relationships may not be abundantly evident, Packard reveals that covert queer connections were woven into the fabric of Western literature, reflecting a broader reality of the time. One manifestation of these hidden connections was the phenomenon of bachelor marriages. In these households, men lived together, forging egalitarian relationships that transcended traditional gender roles. This practice, historians argue, was relatively common, driven in part by the scarcity of women in the region during that area. The absence of rigid distinctions between heterosexuality and homosexuality, prevailing until the late 1800s, allowed for a more fluid expression of relationships. Peter Boag, a historian, elucidates that the acceptance of such arrangements stemmed from the absence of the strict categorizations that would later define sexual orientation. The prevalence of bachelor marriages challenges the stereotypical image of the Wild West, revealing a more inclusive and diverse social landscape than commonly portrayed. The modern myth of the Wild West, perpetuated by cultural narratives, often overlooks the presence and contributions of trans and queer individuals in shaping the history of the frontier. These narratives, while convenient for storytelling, risk erasing a crucial aspect of our collective past. The recent actions by the Department of Health and Human Services, seeking to marginalize and erase trans individuals from historical narratives, underscore the importance of acknowledging and uplifting the trans community. Number 1. The Wild West. The tales of the Wild West, with its settlers, cowboys, outlaws, and Native Americans, have been recounted through the lens of a historical narrative that often erases the presence and stories of LGBTQ individuals. However, historian Peter Boag, in his groundbreaking work Redressing America's Frontier Past, unveils a hidden history that challenges the conventional portrayal of the Wild West. Boag's research spans from the early 1800s to the early 1900s, revealing the existence of hundreds of individuals living their lives as the opposite gender during this era. Many of these individuals, assigned female at birth, chose to dress and live as men, driven by a variety of motivations. Some sought to escape criminal charges that had incurred as women, while others aimed to attain the social rights accorded to men in a society where women were often treated as property, devoid of basic rights. During this period, women faced systemic mistreatment, being denied the right to work, vote, own property, and operate their own businesses. To evade such oppression, some individuals adopted a male identity. Boag notes that not all of them identified as transgender. Some aligned with the gender assigned at birth, while others identified with the gender they presented to the world. Discovering these individuals' gender identities often occurred posthumously, as exemplified by the story of Samuel Williams, a male presenting lumberjack from Montana. Williams's trans identity was only revealed after his death at the age of 80, underscoring the challenges faced by those who defied societal norms. Boag suggests that the West, with its perceived opportunities and fewer social constraints, became a haven for those who sought validation and a chance to live authentically. The West, in contrast to the congested East, symbolized a place where individuals could secure employment and lead lives that were otherwise unattainable. Queer historian Michael Lyons sheds light on the existence of bachelor weddings in the queer Wild West, domestic arrangements where one man undertook work while the other managed domestic and farming tasks. These relationships challenged traditional gender roles, offering an alternative to the societal norms prevalent at the time. Lyons also points to the recognition of two spirits within the Native American tribes, individuals considered tribal religious leaders and teachers possessing the spirits of both a man and a woman. While not identified as trans women and men in contemporary terms, two spirits occupied a unique place on the transgender spectrum, embodying a form of gender diversity acknowledged and revered within their communities. Well, there you have it, guys. A glimpse into the Wild West that your historic books might have missed. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more untold stories, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a trip through time with Vintage TV. Until next time, stay tuned.